What's up, EV Clan? Alex Espion here, and welcome back to the next episode of the Pokemon Red Randomizer Nuzlocke. In the last episode, we went up Pokemon Tower just a little bit, we beat the rival, and then we were going up to the next floor when suddenly one of the people, one of the trainers in there, not like a trainer as in like a person who fights you, but a trainer as in like someone who lives in the Pokemon world and presumably has Pokemon. I don't remember what the trainer class is of the trainer. I think they are, yeah, they're a channeler. One of the channelers, I'm sure they're not channelers in this game because it's randomized, but one of the trainers that would originally be a channeler, told us that we needed, that there are spirits up the later floors of the Pokemon, Pokemon on the later floors of the Pokemon Tower. There are, like, spirits. At which point I realized that I was missing the self-scope, because I forgot how Gen 1 goes. I completely forgot the storyline, and so I made my way to, Vermilion? Is that where we are now? I don't even know. I think no wait, Vermilion is where Surge is. We are at Celadon, yes. I've made my way to Celadon now, and so now we are going to, get the self-scope and go on back, but that's not what we're going to be doing in this episode, as in this episode, our goal is to level up our newly caught Pokemon, as we caught 2 in the last episode, which brings our team count to 6, finally. At long last, we have 6 Pokemon on the team, and I would like to keep it that way. I don't want this to be one of those situations where I catch Pokemon and then instantly lose them, and the best way to avoid that happening is to not send them into battles where they are obviously facing something that is way over their level. And in order to prevent that situation from occurring, I need to level up these Pokemon a decent amount, especially considering that all of our other Pokemon are managing well at like level 35. So I feel like level 30 at least would be a good level to get them up to. Obviously, I'd like to get them up to 35 if we can, just so that they are even with everyone else. But we'll see how long it takes to get them up to like 30, because recent grinding sessions have taken a while, and those have not even been like that big of a level gap. Like 18 to 35 on multiple Pokemon is a lot of grinding, and frankly, I don't want this to take like 2 hours, so I think that I will just see after like maybe an hour of grinding where they're at, and then I might have to settle for that, because I really don't want to do like too much grinding. Maybe like a future grinding session if needed, just to catch them up with the rest of the team's levels, but I don't want to do too much grinding at once, just enough to the point where I feel confident sending them into another battle as we progress in the game. But yeah, I meant to look up between episodes how to evolve Psyduck, because obviously Psyduck is a Pokemon that is not fully evolved, so that means we can get a randomized evolution out of it. But the thing is, I couldn't recall if it evolves by level up or Water Stone. I know, however, that Kyle here, our Gloom, does evolve by Grass Stone, or Leaf Stone. Because I thought in the previous episode that they didn't because it was Gen 1, but then I like thought about it and like, well, how else would they evolve? So clearly it has to be Leaf Stone, is the verdict I've reached. And I also think that Execute evolves to Executor by Leaf Stone, so surely that means that Leaf Stone is in Gen 1, I assume. But, yeah, anyway, in the last episode, I went on a rant. I shouldn't say a rant. Rant implies that it was nonsensical. I went on a little tangent. Is that better than a rant? I don't know. I talked for a bit about like Super Mario Galaxy, pros and cons, what I think of the game, and I basically ended with me saying, if you want to hear the rest of my thoughts on Galaxy, then watch the next episode. So here we are in the next episode. I'll tell you the rest of my thoughts about Galaxy right now, because that is what I promised. So, I will say that I do like the idea of like the bomb boos. I think they're very funny. Like, not only is Poltergeist a really cool idea for a boss, because it's like a poltergeist, because a poltergeist is something that possesses the things around it to make them move. So the fact that they combined Poltergeist with Boulder and made it into Bouldergeist, which is a ghost that moves boulders around it and like forms itself a body out of boulders. Like, that is a very cool idea, in my opinion, because it's like all of a sudden, like, ghosts are not only a physical thing, but then all of a sudden it's, like, surrounding itself with armor made out of boulders, which makes it very cool. And obviously it's that cool play on words, and obviously, as y'all can probably tell from the fact that I love Pokemon, I am a sucker for puns, and I'm sure not everyone in Pokemon fanbase is a sucker for puns, but I certainly am. Obviously, there are a lot of, like, little bits of wordplay and puns in Pokemon, and if you do like wordplay and puns, then, and Pokemon in general, just, like, I highly suggest you check out Yokai Watch if you never have, because Yokai Watch has some very funnily named, clever pun names of just, like, different things, and it is all inspired by, like, Japanese mythology, and it is, like, Pokemon style, like, you go around, getting team members, and, like, building teams, and leveling them up. It is really, like, very similar to Pokemon, but it does have, like, a charm that is all its own. So if you have never played Yokai Watch, then please do check it out. Also, you might want to check out the anime, because it is not the best anime in the world, but I haven't watched a lot of animes, and I think it's pretty darn funny. But anyway, going back to Galaxy, Bouldergeist is really cool, and I think that if you don't like Bouldergeist, then you're just wrong. I think that it's genuinely, like, one of the coolest boss fights in 3D Mario history. I also am getting very concerned with how much damage this Articuno is doing, because everything else in this route is going down relatively easily, but then this Articuno is coming in and doing, like, the vast majority of our Pokemon's health, which is kind of scary, especially with the fact we're switch training, so they get a free hit on us, because those Ice Beams are doing a lot of damage, which makes sense. It is 90 power and stab, and Articuno's special is nothing so off that, so I'd imagine, yeah, Ice Beam would do a lot coming from an Articuno, but, like, my gosh, is that just doing so much damage. Look at our Pokemon, like, look at Gerald and Carly right now, look at their health. It is nutty how much damage that's doing. Like, that is against 2 Articunos. One Articuno can basically whittle one of our Pokemon down, one of our highest level Pokemon down so easily. Like, before it dies. It can whittle our Pokemon down to basically nothing, which is terrifying. And I shudder at the thought that one of these Articunos could get a crit and then just, like, absolutely murder us. Luckily, you got a crit on the peck there instead of an Ice Beam. Because, like, yes, I'm sure that Articuno's physical attack is pretty good as well, because it is a legendary, so all their stats have to be, like, decently good. But Articuno is definitely a special attacker, so if it was a crit on an Ice Beam rather than a peck, then it would have been a lot more, like, terrible to deal with. That would have done a lot more damage. But yeah, there's nothing on this route that Kyle is really, like, good against, that we can get, like, neutral or super effective hits on, because, like, Articuno is, like, ice and flying, so I'm pretty sure that's 4 times not very effective. If I'm wrong, then it's just not very effective, but either way, it's just, like, don't use that, because I know that flying, is resistant to grass, but I don't know if ice is resistant to grass, or if it's just super effective. That is something that I usually, default to when I'm thinking about, like, type matchups, and I said that before. I just want to restate, because, I will say it again, I am not very good with, like, type matchup. I always think that, like, oh my, okay. I always think that, like, if a type is, like, super effective against one type, it will also be resistant to that type, which is not always the case. So I really need to break that habit in the future. But, yeah, the complaint that I have about Super Mario Galaxy is just that, like, it doesn't have, like, the explanations, like, the fun, interesting, explanations that like, other games, previous games in, like, 3D Mario previous 3D Mario games have had. Because in, like, Super Mario 64, it's like, okay, King Womp fights you because he's tired of you walking all over his kind, because you build their bridges, and they build your bridges and your roads, and then you walk all over them, or something like that. And then iRocket's like, oh yeah, you went into his pyramid, and he wants intruders to leave him alone. King Bob-omb, he's, like, fighting a whole war here, and then you come up to him, and then in DS he's just really angry because he thinks your mustache, he thinks your mustache is not as good as his, and he sees you as a threat to his mustachery. But, in Super Mario Galaxy, there really is none of those, like, fun explanations or reasons why bosses are fighting you, because really there's no reason at all for most of them. The majority of them are just like, oh, you went to you were in their galaxy, you went to their planet, and then they saw you locked eyes, and then, like Pokemon, a battle ensues. It's just like Pokemon. If your eyes meet, it's a trainer battle. In Mario Galaxy, if your eyes meet, then it's time for one of you to kill the other. But yeah, I do think that, like, Red Star is really cool, and like the red star, like, flying power-up's really cool, because it does just it is, like, an interesting. First of all, like, I think it's odd, because, like, Superstar power, there's, like, a Superstar and a Red Star. I do think that's an odd thing. It's odd that there's, like, 2 different star power-ups, and one makes you invincible, and one is, like, and that's not, like, even the one that you get, like, after you beat the game. Like, after you beat the game, you get another star power-up, but this one isn't as strong as, like, the original star power-up that you could see, like, find in base game. But, yeah, like, it is odd to me that, like, 1 star makes you invincible, 1 star power-up makes you invincible, and another star power-up makes you fly. And also, I don't get why, like, because the Superstar the thing is about the Superstar is that it makes you, like, blow rainbow. So yes, it is yellow, but it seems to have, like, no specific, like, color associated with it. Because yes, it is yellow, but that's just, like, the color of, like, your stereotypical star. Like, when you ask a child to draw a star in, like, a picture, then that's what they will make it. They will make it yellow. Like, that is obviously, like, the stereotypical star color, but there's really no color related with a star. Like, it would make sense if it was like, oh, the Superstar is called the Yellow Star, and this is a Red Star. But it is kind of odd to me that there's, like, a Superstar, and then there's a Red Star. It's like, why is this star color-coded? Why does the color of this star matter? Overall, it is just kind of weird to me that, like, I think this is the start of it, but, like, I guess green stars were an interesting way of mixing it up in 3D World, but I do look back on it and I'm just kind of like, why? And I know that green stars were in Super Mario Galaxy originally, and looking back at it now, that definitely does make it, like, a lot more, that does, like, add to the confusion a lot more. The fact that you have stars that you collect, you have the Superstar, you have 2 types of stars that you collect. You have a yellow star that you collect, and which is, like, the typical star, which is sometimes called a Superstar in some games. But then you have the power-up, which is a Superstar. But then you also have a green star. So you have a Superstar collectible, you have a green star collectible, you have a Superstar power-up, and you have a Red Star power-up. It's like, it is just a lot of stars, and not all of them are power-ups, and not all of them are collectibles. And the different ones do different things. And it's like, why are these specific stars green? You would think that the green stars would be like the ones that Luigi gets. But that is not actually the truth. In reality, Luigi, like, he tells you when he finds stars, and those stars aren't green. The green stars are not the ones that Luigi finds when he goes and searches for stars and then notifies you when he finds one. Green stars are just green for, like, whatever the heck reason. And then, so in Super Mario Galaxy, you get this idea that they are rare, but then in 3D World, they are all over the place. They are the only collectible. Which I think is honestly kind of strange, especially, like, because, like, I feel like they were setting up, like, golden star tokens as the main power-up, main, like, collectible in, like, modern Mario games. And I think that, like, I don't know if that's, like, the right term, golden star tokens, but that's what I've always called them. And then I know in, like, New Super Mario Bros. 2, there are, like, the moon ones. Like, there's the star tokens, and then there's, like, the moon tokens in, like, the bonus worlds. But, yeah, I call them golden star tokens. My brother has always called them golden star tokens. So I don't know what they're actually called, but I just want to go with that because they are tokens, and they do have a star on them, and they are golden, entirely, in most games. I guess not in most games, but in, like, New Super Mario Bros. They are. In 3D Land, they do have, like, white on them, which once again brings me to the point of why do golden star tokens not appear in 3D World? Because you think, like, oh, you see it in New Super Mario Bros. And it's like, okay, it's a New Super Mario Bros. Exclusive thing. But then all of a sudden you see them in Super Mario 3D Land, and it's like, oh, okay, so these are just, like, the new collectible. Like, regardless of 2D, whether it's a 2D or 3D game, these are the new collectible. and then in 3D World, all of a sudden, there's no golden star tokens, but instead they go back to green stars, if you remember those from Super Mario Galaxy, and also stamps, which stamps are very interesting, because it's like a power-up, a type of collectible that never really, like, reappeared, because obviously those were for Miiverse, and then in the sequel, I believe you can use them as, like, for, like, screenshots, which is very cool in my opinion, because obviously, like, Super Mario Odyssey was the first Mario game to have, like, a screenshot thing, where you could just, like, put on, you could get captures, and you could, like, zoom in and zoom out, and put on filters, and I think that it's really cool that Super Mario Odyssey has that. And obviously, like, a lot of games on the Nintendo Switch have that, and I think that Super Mario Odyssey, being one of the first, like, Nintendo Switch exclusive titles on the Nintendo Switch, really, like, set the groundwork for that, and gave other series the idea to do it. And I know that, like, you could take screenshots in, like, previous Smash games, but Smash Ultimate's, like, screenshots, like, way of doing screenshots, definitely is eerily familiar to that of Super Mario Odyssey, especially, like, how you could put the logo of, like, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate in the corner. Just like in Super Mario Odyssey, you can put, like, the Super Mario Odyssey logo in the corner of your screenshots. But anyway, to go back to 3D World, I think that, like, regardless of the logistics of having 2-star power-ups that are in no way related in effect, and the fact that, regardless of the fact that the red star looks so different from the superstar, like, I believe that the red star is just, like, a different shape entirely. Like, it is still a star, but it is, like, a different kind of star, like, more reminiscent of the grand star than just, like, a superstar. And then, like, you have other things where it's like, okay, you got a, it's like, in some games it's like, oh, you got a star. Like Mario Party, it says, like, you got a star, but then in Super Mario Odyssey, so it's like, it's not a superstar. See, Super Mario Party Superstars is really confusing that way, because it's like, you got a star, and if you get enough stars, you become a superstar. But superstar is the name of the power-up. But these are clearly not the power-up, except in previous games, they have been called superstars. But now they're just stars, and now the superstar is the person who gets them, and also the name of the power-up. It's like, this terminology is so confusing. But yeah, it's just like, sometimes the collectible stars are just stars, sometimes they're superstars, and sometimes in Super Mario Galaxy, they're grand stars, which I think is, like, a whole new layer to it. And then on top of that, so, like, let's just count all the stars in Super Mario Galaxy, just so I can, like, emphasize just how confusing this is. So there are stars, and there are stars that may or may not be called superstars. Maybe they're called stars, maybe they're called superstars. But there are collectibles, there are the superstar collectibles, there's the superstar power-up, and then at the end of Worlds, rather than a superstar collectible, you get a grand star collectible, and grand stars offer more power than a superstar. And then, you also have green stars, which are, like, rarer versions of regular stars. However, in future games, they reappear as common stars, on Earth. So I guess maybe it's just, like, on certain places in the Mushroom Kingdom, they are common, while in space they are not as common. But anyway, on top of all those different types of stars, you also have the red star power-up, which you get post-game, which allows you to fly. Which, I'm gonna be honest, I really like the way. I know I'm, like, trashing on it, and I'm bashing on it right now, but, like, I really do like the introduction of the red star, and I think that, yes, it is odd that it's, like, so deep into the game, like, you play an entire playthrough and not even know that it exists, because I know it is used in, like, levels. I know it is used in, like, certain levels. It's not just to, like, fly around the Comet Observatory, and I'm fairly sure you can gain access to a red star post-game. Like, I'm sure I think that there are levels, sorry, not post-game, like, during the game, like, during the base game, I'm fairly sure there's a level where you have access to a red star, but it's just, like, it's wacky to me that you have to get so late into the game to even see what a red star is, and then all of a sudden that's, like, the thing that you get when you, like, have fully beaten the game. Well, not fully beaten the game, but just, like, beaten the game. And because it's like, you'd think for something that is, like, such a big reward, like, congratulations, you beat the game, you'd think for like, an award, it would be something that people would look forward to. But the fact of the matter is they don't put in the effort to introduce the red star prior to beating the game, so then you beat the game and it's just kind of like, what is this thing? Unless you've played that one specific level where you've seen it before. Like, I feel like they should encourage you to beat the game by showing you the power-up that you might get after beating the game and being like, this is a rare, interesting power-up. And then being like, oh, congratulations, you beat the game, you can now use it to fly around the Comet Observatory. Because it is a really nice reward, being able to just fly around the Comet Observatory after beating the game. Because the Comet Observatory is really like a big, mystical place, in my opinion. Like, it is so different from any other hub world that we've had in Mario before, and it just seems like altogether just so much more majestic. And I feel like the music of Super Mario Galaxy really helps to set the mood, because it's like, frankly, just music of Super Mario Galaxy is like fantastic, like majestic, just so intense. When like in previous games, it was just like, okay, you're walking around the hub world, and it's like, and like I don't even know the Peach's Castle theme from Super Mario 64. If you played it for me, I'd be able to like easily recognize it, but I can't hum it. I couldn't like hum it or like sing it a little bit, but I know like Delfino Plaza's one is like something like that. At least that is some sort of that is some sort of theme from Super Mario Sunshine. I'm fairly sure that's Delfino Plaza, but that could be something else because, like I said, I've never played Sunshine before, and I do have 3D All-Stars, so I could like at any time. But I've just heard that Sunshine is really freaking hard, so I probably won't anytime soon because I do feel I am getting much better at Mario games. But with how much I struggled with Super Mario 64, which is a game that not a lot of people say is hard, I don't think I'm ready for a game that people say is actually difficult. Like, I have seen, like, a bunch of levels from Super Mario Sunshine, and I have seen Small Ant play it. And like, the fact that Small Ant was, like, struggling on some levels, sort of, just shows me that I probably can't do it, because Small Ant is, like, infinitely better at platformers, and specifically Mario, infinitely better at Mario than I will ever be, because, you know, it's kind of his job to be good. Like, he's one of those YouTubers, Small Ant, where it's like, people watch him because he's good at the game. Like, they want to see, like, the challenge videos, you know? Like, I couldn't get viewers like that because I'm not good at video games. Like, that's how he gets views. That's how he makes his videos interesting. Like, a lot of people, because, like, there are ways to attract audiences. There's ways to attract audiences on YouTube. And obviously there's, like, sometimes, like, some things are, like, creative. Like, some people are, like, creative. Some people are funny. Some people are talented. Like, Small Ant, that's not to say that he's not, like, funny, but, like, Small Ant definitely strikes me as a YouTuber who a lot of people watch because they believe he is talented. He's, like, good at video games. That is personally what lured me into him. Because I remember, like, he is one of the only YouTubers where I wasn't, like, recommended him by a friend. Like, one of the only YouTubers I watch where I wasn't recommended him by a friend. Like, at least one of the YouTubers that I've been watching the longest that I haven't been recommended by a friend. I just kind of found him on my own, looking for, like, because I saw, like, a Breath of the Wild challenge video, and I'm like, I kind of want to see that. And obviously, that is very good at, like, that's very good for roping in new viewers. Like, having a title that suggests you are about to do something impressive. And I think that Small Ant is just very good at, like, Super Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, a bunch of games. And that is how he sort of, like, popped off on YouTube, is because he posted, like, he posted videos about legitimately impressive challenges. And I look at some of the things he's done, and I'm like, I can't beat Breath of the Wild normally. It's nutty. It's like, I beat Super Mario Odyssey once, and I'm still struggling to 100% it. Dark Side took me several hours, and yet he's over there doing Superstar mode like it's freaking nothing. But yeah. What was I saying? What was I saying before I went off on a tangent about Small Ant? I think that... Oh yeah, so, basically, I do think that it is a really cool reward being able to, like, fly over this place you spent so much time in. Like, it is because Comet Observatory is your hub world, so obviously, like, after every level, you go back there. After every star, you, like, travel back to that place. At this point, you've seen it so many times, and just think about, like, how many times you have to, like, walk up to the top of the Comet Observatory. Like, by the time you have beaten the game, like, because, like, the thing is, the levels just keep getting higher and higher up the Comet Observatory. Like, obviously, the first few levels don't really follow that, because they're all, like, sort of in the circle. Like, there's, like, there's, like, a ring around the Comet Observatory, and that's where, like, the first few places are where you can, like, access levels. I forget what they're actually called, but you have, like, these different rooms. Like, the engine room, the bedroom, the, like, kitchen. I'm pretty sure there's a kitchen. And then, like, you go in there, you pull yourself up on the pole star, and then you, like, see the map of, like, all the galaxies you can go to. And I think that it is really interesting in Super Mario Galaxy, how, you have, it's, like, the scale of things is obviously much bigger, because, like, in normal Mario games, you go from, like, world to world, and in those worlds, like, eventually lead you to, like, all those worlds are a part of the Mushroom Kingdom. Like, the Mushroom Kingdom consists of 8 worlds, and maybe bonus worlds. But in this, like, you are not going to just worlds, in order to, like, get to the boss. Like, there's not a boss per world. Instead, like, a world is, like, the smallest possible unit of measurement. You know, it's not like there's this many levels in a world, and then at the end of the world is a boss. It's like there is this many worlds in a galaxy, and there is this many galaxies in this cluster of galaxies. And at the end of this cluster of galaxies, you will see a boss. It's like each cluster of galaxies has a boss. It's not just like, oh, you're in a world, which frankly isn't even a world. You know, like, worlds in Mario aren't even worlds. They are a part of the overall world. It's like a bunch of levels is a world. It's called a world, but that is not, like, the entire world. Like, in the Mario world, there is the Mushroom Kingdom, and in the Mushroom Kingdom, there are 8 worlds, and in those worlds, there are levels. It's like, you can sort of break it down into, like, these subcategories of categories, and it's like, and then, like, in Super Mario Galaxy, I think it's kind of crazy, because it's like, oh, what? It's like, okay, the thing is, in Super Mario Galaxy, galaxies are, like, really quite small, because the thing is, like, a galaxy is just as simple to traverse as, like, a normal level in, like, 3D Mario, which is obviously, like, the equivalent of a level. Like, I don't know if it's, like, I don't know if they're called levels in Super Mario 64, but those definitely are, like, the equivalent of a level, judging by how much space they take up, because really, if you think about it, like, yeah, everything seems bigger because it's in 3D, but in reality, it is, like, sort of the same amount of space that a normal, like, 2D Mario level would take up. Like, normal 2D Mario levels seem so much smaller than 3D Mario levels, but, like, it's just because you have that other plane. It's like, now you're seeing it in 3 dimensions, so all of a sudden everything looks bigger, but in reality, if you were, like, to break down Bob-omb Battlefield, if you were, like, to bring Bob-omb Battlefield into 2D, it probably would not be that much bigger than just any other 1-1. But yeah, like, looking at it from the Super Mario Galaxy perspective, like, Super Mario Galaxy has, like, the largest unit of measurement, where it's, like, clusters of galaxies. Because, like, galaxy is, like, the stand-in for a level, which is crazy, that, like, a level is in a, like, in other Mario games, it's, like, the smallest unit of measurement is level. That, like, they used to describe that is, like, one level is a level. And then in this, one level is a galaxy. Like, one level in other Mario games is just, like, a part of a world, which isn't even actually the world. Like, in other Mario games, a level is part of a world, which is part of a kingdom, which is part of the world, which is part of a galaxy. But, like, in Super Mario Galaxy, galaxy is the smallest unit of measurement. Like, that is just crazy, and it really goes to show, oh my gosh, it really goes to show that I'm making bad switches. Let me actually look at my Pokemon, because I just switched into 2 Pokemon in a row that can't hurt this thing. Carly is what I have out right now. Alice. That's not a very good idea. Well, okay, So before I was panicking because I switched into Ghastly using Link, and I was like, oh no, this is terrible, it's gonna kill me. Because that's super effective. But in all honesty, it did not do all that much. And we also have quite a bit of health comparatively to our other Pokemon with Alice. Surprisingly, I actually need to look at it because I feel like Alice has a lot of health. Like, they took that really well. And maybe it's because Alice's defense is decent, but I feel like Haunter's defense isn't that good. I feel like Haunter is pretty frail, but we're just taking those hits because we have so much health. Like, it's not like we can take hits very well. Like, a lot of hits are doing a lot of damage to us, but the problem is we have so much health that we can just, the thing is we can have so much health that we can, like, take those rough hits. We can afford to take those, because I feel like Alice is the name of the Haunter, yeah. Alice just has a lot of health. But then again, now I'm looking at it, Gerald also has, like, more health. Carly also has more health. In reality, they actually have the least health out of all of our Pokemon that are in the 30s here. Which, now I'm very confused why it looked like so little, but I guess it's just like it's just an instance of my mind playing tricks on me, and me thinking that Alice is more of a beast than they are. But yeah, I don't know, it just feels like so much more of a big number when it's just like square 90. Like, when I saw like 99 on other people, it's like, oh yeah, okay, they have health. And then like I see 90 on Alice, and like they have a lot of health, you know? Like 90 somehow feels like more than 99 because it's just like a straight, no, it's just like an even, nice, nice round number. It just feels like more impressive. I think it's just the 0, because it's like you think of a number with more, a number that is more, and you think of like, oh, add a 0 to it. So the fact that it ends in that 0, it's like 90. It's not 99 or 97, it's 90. It looks more impressive, even though it's actually less. But yeah, I do love Honey Queen in Super Mario Galaxy. I love that whole mission, and don't call me weird, but I think it is a really interesting idea to crawl around her body. Oh my gosh, people are gonna think I'm weird. It is just very interesting. It is a very interesting mission, very interesting, unique idea. The whole, like, crawling on her and collecting, like, the star pieces so that you can make, like, a launch star, I believe is what it makes. Maybe it's a pole star, maybe it's a launch star, I don't really know. Are there even, like, pieces that you collect to make a pole star? Pole stars are just cool. Like, I do like the whole, motion controls gimmick. And I know that motion controls are, like, widely not liked in most games, but I feel like Super Mario Galaxy does them quite well. And then you get to, like, the manta ray racing, and you're like, oh my gosh, I freaking hate this. But in general, I feel like usually, motion controls in Super Mario Galaxy are bearable, aside from some levels. I think that, currently I have, like, 2 stars left before I 100% the game. And I know what one of them is, and I'm really not looking forward to it. It is that last, like, because basically there's, like, this big, like, cluster of levels. You get, like, after you beat the game, there's, like, this big cluster of levels. I think it's, like, a green launch star that sends you to, like, 3 different levels. And one of those levels is, like, a bubble level. One of those levels is a manta ray level. And one of those levels is a like, ball rolling level. And if you know something about Super Mario Galaxy, you know that all of those, like, level gimmicks are reliant on motion controls. And the bubble one was, like, difficult, but not, like, too difficult, because at least I could get to, like, 1-ups consistently, and so I was never really getting any game overs. But, the Manta Ray one was actually really easy, because I had the ability to take my time, and boy did I. Like, it was, I don't know if they were timing me, I think they were timing me, but it was, like, really, if they were timing me, then it was, like, really, really forgiving. Because the timer was not a problem, I took it slow, and I did the first try, which is honestly, I don't think I did the first try, but I did the, like, first try actually trying. Like, I think I did 2 tries, where I got absolutely nowhere, and I was like, okay, focus up, and then I did it, like, easily. So, like, I actually thought the Manta Ray one would be so much harder, but I took it slow, and it was easy. Because I remembered, like, the original Manta Ray level being so freaking hard, and so I was expecting that, like, post-game one to be super hard as well, but to my surprise, it actually wasn't. Now, the one that actually looks really hard, like, the bubble one was hard, but, like, the ball rolling one, I've tried it a couple times, I am getting nowhere. And it's like, yeah, I just have to sit down and do it at some point, and I'd be really excited to sort of, like, just, like, get it done because really, it is bugging me that I'm like this close to 100%ing Super Mario Galaxy. It is like, because it'd be such an impressive feat to say like, to finally be able to say like, hey, I 100%ed a 3D Mario game. Because I know that like 3D Mario games aren't like the hardest thing to 100% in the world. But for me, that's impressive because I feel like I've never 100%ed a game, and I think that's like a decent one to start with. Technically, I've 100%ed SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated now. Because I know I said I didn't want to, but I kinda did. I've gotten all the Steam achievements, so technically it's 100%. Like, yes, I have to still unlock the cinema, and I don't want to know what's in the cinema. I purposely, did not figure it out, did not, like, look it up, because I want to get there myself. Boys, 40,000 shiny objects, just a lot. Like, I've 100%ed it. Like, according to Steam, I've 100%ed it. I have all the golden spatulas, all of the socks, all the Steam achievements, like, all the collectibles I could possibly get, and so, I mean, I guess I've 100%ed it, but there's still this one area, in case you never played the game, there is the cinema, which costs 40,000 shiny objects to get into, and since I have all the collectibles in the game, I don't know what's in there, and I am, I think that, like, I don't know if that's, like, considered part of the 100%, because I know that, like, Steam 100% doesn't necessarily mean, like, actual true 100%, but I'd imagine that is, like, technically something that you need to do 100% the game, because when, I don't know how seriously people take the term 100%, like, and I guess it depends on the game, like, certain 100% runs are more lenient than others, I feel, where it's, like, sometimes 100% isn't completely finished, you know, like, sometimes 100% is just, like, you have all these collectibles, but there's still, like, different places you can access that you don't, like, need to, like, different things that you could do that you don't need to have, like, technically it's all complete, like, you've done all the important stuff, and, like, some games are, like, I guess, aren't as strict with 100% as others, but I'd imagine that, like, having an entire area that you haven't unlocked is, like, stopping it from being 100%. Is something that would stop it from being 100%. So I don't think my progress on that game is something that can be considered 100% just yet. And, like, I will get around to it. I actually did something really cool, in my opinion, that I wanted to do, like, it's how I wanted to do it, where I'm like, okay, I need 40,000 shiny objects, so I'm gonna go back through all the levels I've played, and I'm going to get as many shiny objects in each of those levels as possible. And so that way I get to re-experience, like, all the levels of the game, while also working towards this new goal of getting all these shiny objects. But, the thing is, I went through every level. It took about, like, 3 hours, like, going through every level in the game, collecting shiny objects, going back through all of them, and I am only at 20,000. So now I'm just kind of like, well, what do I do now? And I think that, like, I have a few ideas. I kind of am tempted to look up, like, a guide, because I'm sure that someone with, like, how many shiny objects you need to get into that movie theater, I'm sure that someone has, like, got it down to a science. I'm sure that someone knows, like, how to get shiny objects in SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom really fast. Like, I'm sure there's some tutorial out there, because there's always tutorials for, like, grindy stuff in video games, like how to do this real fast. I'm sure I could find a tutorial, and I might look up a tutorial, but I do have some ideas first, and I'll see how long each of those takes. Particularly what comes to mind for me is, like, the lighthouse. Like, when I think of places where I can get a lot of shiny objects, like the lighthouse with all those, like, enemies, and then, like, the big pile of stone tikis when you fall down to the bottom. First of all, like, lighthouse is good because it just has a lot of enemy spawners, and so you just have a lot of, what's the word? You just have, like, a lot of, you can just, like, keep killing enemies, and they keep respawning really fast, and obviously enemies give you shiny objects when you kill them, so that's, like, a quick way to get, like, like, shiny objects keep replenishing. So that sounds like it would be fast, and then also, like, by the time you actually get to the bottom, you have, like, a ton of stone tikis piled up, and that gives you, like, 1,000 per run-through, I think. Because it's just, like, a whole pile, and then, like, you go over to them, and the explosive tiki in the middle explodes, and it just blows them all up at once, and you get all those, shiny objects. I think that, like, places that have a lot of enemies, and also just, like, any, like, stack of tikis, with, like, any, like, big stack or pile of tikis, with, like, a explosive tiki next to it, is, like, good for money. Like, it looks like it'd be good for money, and it is just so satisfying. Like, I know in, downtown Bikini Bottom, I believe is, like, where it is like the name of the level, but it's like the main, like, when you think of Bikini Bottom, it's like that's the Bikini Bottom you think of. Like, that is Bikini Bottom. That is like the city where SpongeBob lives. Like, he doesn't actually live in the city. He lives on, like, the outskirts of it, but that is Bikini Bottom. Like, Coral and Conch, that is the cityscape. Like, yes, Bikini Bottom as a region spans farther than just that city, but that is, like, the main city of Bikini Bottom. Like, if it's like a New York City is part of New York thing, then that is like Bikini Bottom City is part of Bikini Bottom. Like, it is that type of place that is. Like, that is the... When I say that this is the Bikini Bottom level, like, obviously it's all in Bikini Bottom, because it is Battle for Bikini Bottom. But, like, this is Bikini Bottom, Bikini Bottom. And, like, obviously they couldn't call it, like, just Bikini Bottom, because, like, the whole place is Bikini Bottom. That's the whole game, is that you're fighting for Bikini Bottom. So obviously all these places you're going to are in Bikini Bottom. So they just call it, like, downtown Bikini Bottom, I think. But that is, like, the Bikini Bottom of Bikini Bottom, you know? It is, like, when you think of Bikini Bottom, that is what you think of, because that is, like, the cityscape. Just like when you think of New York, most of you probably think of New York City. And so, yeah, I know that there's, like, towers of tikis over there, and so, like, you could get up to the top and, like, an explosive tiki, and then it, like, explodes all the way down and kills a bunch. And I accidentally switched to a Pokemon that cannot damage this Ghastly because I'm too busy talking about SpongeBob. But, hey, that's what you're gonna do. Sometimes that happens when you're dealing with me, and I get lost in my talking, just stop paying attention to the game. Especially when it's as late as it is right now. It is 10 o'clock at night currently. And I understand that that's not that late, but today was a little bit tiring of a day. So, you know, it's like, my brain only works so well just normally. All of a sudden you introduce, like, the it's slightly late element into it, and my brain is just, like, working even less well than usual, which is crazy because usually I can't keep a conversation going. Usually I get lost on these tangents and forget what I'm saying, but all of a sudden it gets so much more so when I'm freaking tired. But, yeah, I do think that, like, I do think it's interesting that out of all the power-ups for Super Mario Galaxy that they could have chose, they went with B Mario, because obviously they've done animals before, but when you think of, like, animals that you'd love to have powers of, like, I don't think that B is the first thing that pops into people's heads. Like, maybe for some people, because it's like, oh yeah, they have, like, needles on their butts. That's pretty cool. That can do some damage. But the funny thing is that B Mario doesn't even use the needle on his butt for, like, attacking. Like, I could see why you'd want to have B powers for that reason, so you have, like, the stinger, but the thing is, with a lot of bees, the stinger falls out after they use it, and then they just kind of die. Like, that's why bees don't go around just stinging everything, is because they don't want to die. So it makes sense that Mario wouldn't use the stinger, especially if he's one of those types of bees. But yeah, I mean, I'd imagine when people think of, oh, what's the powers of a bee? I think, like, one of the major things that they think of would be the stinger, and so it's interesting that Mario doesn't have access to the stinger in his skill set. In fact, really the only use of B Mario is the flying, which I think is kind of lame. I guess you can climb too up to, like, furry surfaces. That is kind of cool, but for the most part, it is just, like, flying is the main thing that B Mario does, and I think that B Mario could have had, like, a lot more to it, because bees can do more than just fly. Like, they have a stinger, as I said. Yes, they can fly, but they can also, like, collect pollen, and I feel like we didn't get, like, enough of that. I don't know how, like, collecting pollen would factor into a platformer game. I don't know how that would factor into, like, puzzles and how to get stars. But, I think that would have been, like, an interesting mechanic to include, and I think there are, like, pollen effects when you touch certain things. But I don't know, there's just never a place where you can, like, collect pollen, and I think that would have been a really interesting thing to integrate, is if it was just like, oh yeah, for this star you have to make honey, and so you collect pollen from all these different flowers, but you can only do that with the bee mushroom. It's like, then you have a star that literally requires a specific ability of this power-up. And yeah, I understand that, like, other stars require an ability of the power-up. But, like, this is, like, a specific ability of the new power-up. You know, it's not just like, oh, you need extra height, so fly up. It's like, this is a very specific bee-oriented ability. Like, if you had to make honey for a star, then it's like, that is the bee mushroom star. You know, like, that is the star that you need the bee mushroom for. Like, yeah, you need bee mushroom for other stars, because you need to get extra height or whatever. But that is, like, the star where it's like, oh yeah, undoubtedly this is bee mushroom, because I need to make honey, and what else can make honey besides bees? Like, this is not a this is not a star that can be obtained by another power-up. This is the bee mushroom star. Because, like, you look at other games, and it's like, yeah, in Super Mario Galaxy, bee mushroom may be your best bet for getting height, but, like, in other games, there are so many other power-ups that could just be used to give you height, like, most notably in Super Mario Galaxy 2, like the Cloud Flower. And so, the fact that Bee Mario's only ability is just sort of like you fly upward is kind of disappointing, but I do like the idea of Mario turning into a bee. I do think that's, like, an interesting choice, especially considering that, like, they didn't go with the obvious, like, stinging power. Like, I think that while it would have been interesting if they went with the stinger as with one of the abilities that we got, I'm kind of glad they didn't. Like, they didn't go for the low-hanging fruit, because, you know, it's just, like, it's right there, so it almost feels, like, cheesy to make it so he can sting, and I also don't know, like, how that would look. It also wouldn't look right, I don't think, like, Mario just shoving his butt into enemies. Like, I think that, like, yes, the punching and kicking of Mario 64 is kind of weird by today's standards, but I think that that would have aged even worse if Mario was just shoving his butt into enemies and, like, stabbing them with a needle. But yeah, like, Bee Mario, wish there was more to it, but overall, just good power-up, very interesting. Boo Mario is a really cool one, in my opinion. Because that one, okay, Bee Mario is, okay, this is the thing about Mario Galaxy. As I mentioned before, there are a number of power-ups in the game that run out via time, as the power-ups in Super Mario 64 did, because the power-ups in Super Mario 64 made you invincible, except for the wing cap, obviously. But, like, Vanish Cap and Metal Cap both made you invincible, so they needed to have, like, time run out. They couldn't just stick with the thing that deactivated power-ups in previous games, which was getting hit, because you couldn't get hit, because you were invincible. So, that sort of carried over. Super Mario Galaxy power-ups, even though there aren't, like, power-ups that make you invincible besides the Superstar. Other power-ups like Ice Mushroom and Ice Flower and Fire Flower also have that, like, sort of, they run out with time, not run out due to you getting hit. They also have that, like, aspect factor. What is the word? Attribute. They also have that attribute. But there are other power-ups that run out that, like, deactivate in different ways. And I think that some of those ways are very interesting. Like the bee mushroom, obviously, does not go away via time, which I think is good, because I think if it went away via time, that would make things a lot more annoying. Because I feel like it is one of those power-ups where it's just, like, nice to keep. Like, it's not like the Fire Flower where you just run around and feel OP for an amount of time. Because, like, Fire Flower doesn't really like help you with specific things like Bee Mushroom and Boo Mushroom do. Like, Bee Mushroom is like, oh, you need height, Bee Mushroom. It's like, yo, you need height, Bee Mushroom. Oh, you need to go through this fence, Boo Mushroom. But, like, Fire Flower is just good for, like, everything. It's just always good to have. So considering it's one of those power-ups where it's not, like, a specific gimmick, it's just really good. It just, like, kills things, and it's just, therefore, always useful. I feel like since it's that, it makes sense that one would be a timed thing, while other power-ups, like the Bee Mushroom and Boo Mushroom, which you would need to hold on to for specific things, would not run out of time. Instead, they have different ways that you can, like, stop, that they are deactivated. Obviously, for the Bee Mushroom, if you touch water, then it deactivates, which obviously makes a lot of sense, because the whole thing is that, in case you never watched the Bee movie, bees can't fly in rain. The bug's wings, when they get wet, they can no longer fly, which obviously is, as I said, the main purpose of the Bee Mushroom. So it only makes sense that this power-up, which its main purpose is to allow you to gain extra height by flying a little bit. Once you get in the water, once you fall in water, it deactivates, because that is the purpose of the power-up, to fly. And when bees get their wings wet, they can no longer do that. So therefore, it's like, well, if the bee can't do what the bee can do, then therefore what is the purpose of the power-up? And so therefore, that is what gets rid of the power-up. And then obviously with Boo Mario, you think of like stereotypical like monsters and ghoulies and like all that. You're like, oh yeah, vampires, werewolves. It's like, what do they not like? They don't like white. They don't like white? They don't like light. So obviously, why wouldn't it not be the same for a ghost? Obviously, you hear all the time of like people going into these dark buildings looking for ghosts. But you ever hear of people going into perfectly lit buildings looking for ghosts? It is a significantly less common thing. And I don't know how accurate that is, but like, oh yeah, ghosts come out when it's dark. They don't like to show their faces when it's light out. But like, I feel like if ghosts are real, which obviously is something that not a lot of people can agree on, I personally believe in ghosts. But if you do think they're real, like me, then you would, then like, I think personally that they just like, I feel like they just don't like to show themselves during the day, like for whatever reason. Like I don't know why that would be the case, but in my experience, I always see people coming in to like the dark buildings. They never like turn the lights on. They always come in with their like night vision cameras, and maybe they're just being stupid. Like maybe they could just turn the lights on, but for some reason, I guess that ghosts just like to be in the dark. Either that or they're being stupid. But yeah, obviously, like there's that idea that maybe ghosts don't like light. So obviously, there's a more established thing with like vampires, because vampires, like you literally, they come out in the light and then they start burning. They like set on fire, like that clip from Minions where they just like are serving Dracula, and then all of a sudden they open up the curtains and then he dies. At one point when I was a kid, I had this like memory of like reading a book, like a picture book of like Minions, and like literally it was shown in way too much, in this picture book, it was shown in way too much detail, just Dracula getting burned by sunlight into ashes. Like, it's like, this is a kid's book. Like, it was just in so much detail. It's like, and everyone, it's like showed like all the minions. It's like a little kid's book, and it showed like how all the minions like failed their job. It's like this, they were like working for this war general, and it was not good. And then they found a dinosaur, and he like flew off a cliff, or he died and got exploded by a volcano or something. I don't know. I don't remember how it goes. But with like the vampire one, it was just like so. It was very like, it was just very in depth. I think that like half the book was actually covering like just Dracula, like just them working for Dracula. I think that actually it was a book about it being Dracula's birthday, and then them preparing for Dracula's birthday. And it's like, yes, other jobs they had before were mentioned at the beginning of the book, but they like glossed over them, and it was just a book about like preparing for Dracula's birthday. It's like, yeah, they had this job, and they had that job, and now they're at Dracula, and they're preparing for his birthday. And then at the end, he just dies. And it's like, this is freaking tragic for a kid's book, that it built like all this stuff up. It's like, oh yeah, it's his birthday, it's like happy birthday Dracula, and they're planning this whole party, and then he just dies. It's like, dang. And it's like, well, on to the next job. I wonder if they'll ever find a job that fits them. And it's like really interesting. Yeah, I found that really interesting, like looking back, that like that is like a children's picture book they decided to publish, because it's like, they didn't even show the positive part of Minions. They just showed like the part where they fail, and then they showed them actually succeeding for a moment, and then killing their leader. It's like, that is like, they showed the lowest point of Minions, and they took the lowest point in Minions and made it into a picture book for kids. It's kind of odd. I don't know why that jumped into my memory. What was I even talking? I was talking about Boo Mario. And that somehow transitioned into vampires not liking light, and which transitioned into that picture book I just remembered from when I was a little kid. But Gerald is not the Pokemon we need. Andrew would be a Pokemon we need, but Andrew is a little low on health, so we're gonna give Alice a turn. Andrew is also a higher level. I think that is like the more... I think that is like secretly the reason why my brain was like, let's not switch in Andrew, because they were a higher level. Because really, I often will not go for the safe switch if it means that that Pokemon is gaining more levels if they're already over-leveled. And yes, they're only over-leveled by 2 levels compared to the rest of the team, but that is still over-leveled, and I love to just have my Pokemon at all the same levels. I think it's such a satisfying thing. Just like love to look at them all and be like, oh, you're level 35, and you're level 35, and you're level 35. Just like nice and satisfying, and that's why I love to like when I grind them up, I don't like to leave it at like, okay, I grinded up the Pokemon, they're out now at level 34 when the rest of the team is like at level 35. Like, no. I want to get them to level 35, but judging by how long this is taking, I don't think that that is going to be a plausible thing to do, because it is taking so long just to get them to 30 here. We still have 4 more levels to go. I don't know how much. We got 8 levels today. So, if we go for another hour, next time we can get another 8 levels, which will bring us to 34, which, well, I guess it would take longer. But yeah, this is just a lot of grinding. My gosh. So, do I want to do another hour-long grinding episode after this? Not like after this. Like, I'm not gonna obviously like do that right now. But like, I'm talking about for the next video I do. Do I want to do another hour-long grinding episode? I mean, I think by now y'all know the answer to that. More content is more content. So heck yeah. But hey, maybe we'll get to level 27 right now. No, we do not. But like, let me just see how long it takes us to get to level 27. Maybe we can get to level 27 before I wrap up this episode at the hour mark. But before we wrap up the episode, I guess I better wrap up my thoughts on Super Mario Galaxy. So let me just think of where I was before. Oh yeah, so Boo Mario. I do think that it is like a... Looking back, it is like a somehow it is like, it works as a precursor to Super Mario Odyssey. And like, I would be upset that boos don't appear in Super Mario Odyssey. It is kind of a weird thing, but at the same time, it's like, I get why you can't possess a boo, because obviously possession is a ghost thing, so why would you be able to like possess a ghost? Like, Cappy is kind of a species of boo, you know, they are like hat boos, and I'm sure there's like an actual name for the species, because Mario has names for everything. But, like, the whole thing about Cappy, which makes him really interesting, is that he is a ghost that instead of possessing things, allows his wearer to possess things, because he is a hat. So you throw him onto things, and whatever he is on top of, rather than him possessing it, he allows someone else to possess. Which I think is a very interesting spin on, like, possession and, like, ghosts. But, basically, so, and that is why, like, since he is a ghost, and the whole mechanic of the game is possessing things, it wouldn't make sense for you to become a boo, because the way you're becoming things is by possessing them, and that is like a ghostly ability. Possessing a ghost really doesn't make much sense. So I do understand why boos cannot be possessed in Mario Odyssey, but I feel like also I don't understand why they're not like in the game, period. Like, I get that they want to draw attention to, like, their new type of boo that is, like, hat boos and, like, Bonneton, or whatever Cat Kingdom is called. But, that just does feel weird that the only type of boo in the game is the boo that is an ally. And I feel like if they introduced, if in Super Mario Odyssey 2, if it ever happens, they introduced, like, other boo type of enemies. Because there are a bunch of boo type of enemies, they could introduce new ones, or they could just bring back old ones. I'm good with either. I just like to see some interaction between, like, boos and whatever sort of species of boo Cappy is, like other boos and Cappy. Because obviously I feel like the whole thing is that, like, if things have hats, then you can't possess them in Mario Odyssey. Because, like, obviously if they're wearing a hat, you can't make them wear another hat. I mean, in some cases, you can, like, knock off the hats of other enemies so that then you can possess them. But in a bunch of cases, enemies that don't have hats just straight up can't be possessed. And, like, obviously, I think that a boo wouldn't need a hat in order to not be possessed. It would just be an enemy that can't be possessed simply because it is a ghost, and you can't possess a ghost. Like, that just makes sense. So, like, yes, they could give the boo a hat, but it wouldn't really do much. I feel like it would serve no purpose. I feel like just saying it's a boo so you can't possess it because it is the thing that possesses things, not you. would suffice as a reason why you can't possess it. But yeah, I just like to see boos in Mario Odyssey, even if you can't possess them. Because I feel like also that would be a good way to integrate, like, enemies that are immune to possession. Like, you just have to fight them on your own, you know? But the thing is, I don't actually know how you would, like, defeat boos in Super Mario Odyssey. I guess you have to possess like, a light or something, because obviously in Super Mario 3D World, that's how you kill boos. Because Super Mario 3D World was, like, the first game, really, where you could, like, actually kill them. Well, I guess Super Mario Galaxy you could, since I was on the topic of Super Mario Galaxy. In Super Mario Galaxy, that is even how you go out of boo form, is you go under the light, and then it actually deactivates the power-up, because like I said, ghosts don't like light. And obviously in Super Mario 3D World, they reused that, so you had like the light box, which you wore on your head, and then like when you faced a boo, it would shine a light on it, and then it would like go and evaporate into thin air. So then it would be dead. So I guess like how it would work in Super Mario Odyssey 2 if they did include boos was it would be that they would make it so you have to like possess some sort of light. Like maybe you could possess like a lamppost or something, or hey, maybe you could possess like an enemy that generates light. Either way, either way, like boos would be an interesting enemy that like it's not as simple as just possess them and throw them off a cliff, because like theoretically you could do that with most enemies in Mario Odyssey. It's like, oh, how do I defeat this? Well, you could jump on it, or you could do the funnier option of just like possessing it and throwing off a cliff. Boos would make a great enemy in Super Mario Odyssey that are like that are not for possession, like you can't possess them, but there's like an interesting way to defeat them. You know, it's like Super Mario Odyssey has so many enemies where you can just possess them and like have your way with them, that I feel like having another enemy that is just like something that you kill rather than something that you possess and use its abilities would be great. But that being said, thank you all so much for watching, Eevee Clan. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This is Alex Espion, signing off.